Zamat. We understood that at that time that they knew that there was a principle of a concept of a Horus who would then confront in the same continued battle Set. And that they knew that there was a spirit of an Oset called Isis who was therefore able to interact and intervene on the part of Osir, on the part of Horus, and to restore and to bring back the power and the energy that could make the new day come. And ultimately, that the spirit of Horus, that it come through the interaction with the power and the determination and the perseverance of Oset, interacting with the persistence of the divine righteousness manifested in Osir, that principle would be manifested in a new manifestation known as Heru Horus, and Heru Horus then would stand up to eventually vanquish the pig and bring him down by the power of truth which he stood for. That was told years ago. And then someone else came along and said, Joshua's got to fight the battle of Jericho. And they said that, how will Joshua bring down the walls of Jericho? And they tell us in the story of the prophetic memory about what was going to happen in days yet born. They said that even though he was like unarmed, and even though the walls and the fortress around Jericho was like no fortress that had ever been seen, he was told to circle the fortress 7 times and the walls would come tumbling down. And he did it, and it happened. And we know in the same stories, I'm talking about the story that was told about today's news, the fact that there were people who were captive in a land that was called by the false name of Egypt, and the people who were called by the false name of the Hebrews and were held in captivity for 400 years against their will, robbed of their culture, robbed of their dignity, robbed of their understanding, robbed of their ability to be who they were, put under the yoke of slavery and barbaric treatment by an evil oppressor. That there were a people who somehow stood there not knowing their God, not knowing their names, not knowing their dignity. For 400 years they stood there. And then the prophets tell us that those people eventually had an awakening. That there was an awakening. That light came. And as the light came, the impossible conditions of captivity fell aside. And they tell us that the pharaonic symbol of captor lost his hold because a greater truth came. And they tell us that the serpent of Musa, called Moses, ate up the staff of the magicians. That Dan Quayle couldn't fool us no more. George Bush couldn't fool us no more. Even though he brought in all the magicians. Come in ABC, come in NBC, come in Larry King, come in Jim Baker, come on in. Bring in the magicians. We got to convince these people that we can do the next 4 years what we didn't do the last 4 years. Bring in the people. Bring in the magicians. And then along comes Moses and say, throw down. Let us see your stuff. And the lies are gobbled up before the eyes of the very people. Now look, these are stories which were prophecies of this day. It was talking about this time. You are the captured people. You are being taken across the desert. It is the inspiration of the thinking of the Elijah Muhammads, the Marcus Garveys, the Martin Luther Kings, the Malcolm X's, the Harriet Tubmans, the Mary McLeod Bethunes. These are the people who have consistently come and said, let my people go. It's time to leave Babylon. It's time to leave Egypt. It's time to leave Sodom and Gomorrah. It's time to leave the Jericho walls. It's time to leave the land of your captors. It's time to leave Columbus. It's time to leave the Columbian mind. It's time to go home to yourself. And all the books tell us over and over again, even though they came with legions of warriors, even though they brought down all kind of devastating arms and warriors, even though they brought together every kind of principality and beast they could find. They brought seraphim and cherubim, and they brought them all together to confront the righteous Lamb of God. But in the last day, they tell us, even at the very last moment, the righteous rose above on the wings of Ma'at and flew away into higher understanding. Understanding, listen, that the confrontations and involvement with the temporary conditions of devastation was no more than a temporary laboratory experiment in order to wash away the dirt and the filth and the corruption of a state of our own mindset that we didn't know that was in our mindset, and what it had been personified and manifested into the personification of something that came out of us. We could see what evil was really all about, and we take the spear like Horus did and slay the pig. Peace be unto you.
about you, but my soul and my spirit, my mind and my body feels good right about now. All we need right now is some drums, right? It's been the materialism, it's been the spiritualism and the individualism that has brought us to this place, but we can recapture that. We can reclaim that. Dr. Akbar has given us a challenge and told us how we can do it. We have access to all types of facilities where we work, in our workplaces. Find out what they're doing. Build coalitions in your communities so that we can do what they're doing. It's all possible. If you're working for TU Electric, you're working for DISD, wherever you're working, find out what's going on there. Make notes. Try to figure out how we can do it ourselves. It's possible. I can't say anything right now. I'm just overwhelmed by the words of wisdom that Brother Naim Akabar has brought to us. He has placed a challenge before us. He said, we knew, if it requires meditation, whatever it requires for you to recapture those things which you know that are part of you, the God that is within you. I don't know what way that you go about your own spiritual cultivation, but this is the root of our demise, is that we have not gone within. We have not spent that quiet time that we need to do in order to understand who we are first. The most important thing to do is to know thyself. Through history, through stories, whatever it takes to remember who you are, please do so. The evidence is here. And the most important thing about this time, as Dr. Akbar said during the National Technical Association last year, is that there's an awakening now. The dawning is here. And unlike any other time in history, most of us have gone through college. We did what our parents said. We got that education. I did exactly what my daddy said do, get that degree. I went on and got another one. But now I'm re-educating myself as to who I am. And this is what we have to do. We've gotten the education, we've gotten the history from the white man. So we need to know who we are. And that's the most important thing. When we empower ourselves with the knowledge of who we are and empower ourselves with what we're capable of doing and teach our children on a daily basis, not expecting the educational system to do that, we can do it. And most importantly, remember the God that is within you. All things are possible. At this time, if any of you may have questions, please come forward in the middle of the aisle and we will have... No? Okay. There's not enough time. I'm sorry. Okay. At this time, okay, tapes are available outside at the third eye table for... Okay, both tapes and books of Dr. Naim Akabar are available at the third eye table. Please feel free to purchase any materials you'd like. Thank you. See you in the morning.